Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Notes on Ningyo, week number 8. We've had 7 episodes so far that we have traveled far and wide within the landscape and the countryside of Japanese dolls. And this week we're going to go a little bit old school. We're going to deal with what is considered by many to be the purest and most authentic form of Japanese dolls, and those are called gosho-ningyô or palace dolls. So this week's topic, jumping right in, is gosho-ningyô, gift dolls from the Imperial Palace. Now, those of you who are not familiar with gosho-ningyô, we have to deal with the aesthetics first. The aesthetics of a very plump child seated, frequently holding an auspicious object. That aesthetic we can actually trace back to Imperial culture, about 1,020 years ago, give or take. When we look at the very famous pillow book of Seishonagon that was published or came out in around the year 1002. Think about that, the year 1002. She lists, she was a court lady who was very observant of the world around her and took notes and jotted down her impressions of people and places and activities that struck her fancy. And under a list of 99 adorable things, we find this quote: "An extremely plump baby who is about a year old and has lovely white skin comes crawling towards one, dressed in a long gauze of robe of violet with his sleeves tied up." That evokes a very, very, very strong image. And frequently, and as we canvas gosho-ningyô, that's exactly the type of image we find of a crawling baby. Similarly, in that same 99 things, she lists a baby of 2 or so is crawling rapidly along the ground. With his sharp eyes, he catches sight of a tiny object, and picking it up with his pretty little fingers, takes it to show it to a grown-up person. And that, of course, we find as pretty much the quintessential gosho form of a seated child, plump, white skin, holding an object, smiling, a look of approval or a questioning look for approval on his face. Now, we'll get into the history of gosho and how they developed, but that idea of the plump child, but also the imperial connotation, was something that was very, very strong within people's popular perceptions of gosho-ningyô, and also historic fact. When we canvas collections of gosho-ningyô, frequently we have to go to the imperial nunneries, such as Hokkyoji in Kyoto. And imperial nunneries are where women from the imperial elite would retire either after the death of their husband or quite early in life to take up other pursuits of Buddhist studies, but also gave them a lot of freedom. And these imperial nunneries hold large collections of dolls, not only brought in by the ladies when they retired, but also gifts that would continue to come in. This particular doll is known as Komei-san, given by the Komei Emperor. And Komei Emperor was the mid-19th century, one of the very last emperors of Japan, and he gave this doll to one of the nuns at Hokkyoji, and so it remains there today and is pretty much a national figure. Everyone knows Komei-san. I took my tour there in 2017 when we did a tour of Japan. We visited Hokkyoji, the Imperial Nunnery, and looked at their Ningyo exhibition. And in their courtyard, they have this statue, and quite appropriately, the stone carving is of a gosho-ningyô holding a mirror. So let's talk a little bit about the history of gosho-ningyô. There's no blueprint. There's no exact historical record of when and how and why these forms came to be so popular and so closely associated with the imperial family. But there are 2 broad streams of thought, if you will. One, people feel that they emerged out of another type of doll form known as the Saga Ningyo. Now, Saga Rashiyama is an area to the north and west of Kyoto, frequented in the summer months for its cool streams and cooler temperatures. And there were a number of Buddhist temples up there, and a form of illuminated manuscript emerged out of the Saga area, known for its lustrous quality and high quality materials. And monks in the area were known in the late 16th century, late 1500s, early 1600s, to start carving seated figures known as doji, or Buddhist acolytes. And these figures are sometimes considered the holy grail of Ningyo because so few exist. And they didn't use actual textiles. They used carved wood with raised gofun as sort of a lacquer technique. And out of these very important and popular figures, beginning in the 1600s, the late 1600s and into the early 1700s, we find the emergence of what's known as a Hadaka saga, or a naked saga. And so these were seen to be saga dolls, but without their clothing, so exposing that plump white skin. They were known for having a little bit more attenuated limbs, more long, lithe limbs. And so this form, known as Hadaka saga, gradually, it is believed, merged or evolved into the plump seated child that we see and know very much as a gosho today. A second train of thought is that they emerged from a completely different tradition. If we look at dolls within the imperial family going quite early, back to at least, say, Shonagon's period, back in the 11th century, we find visual documentation, written documentation of dolls called hoko, or crawling babies, that were done out of white silk, pure white silk, simply fashioned together to look like a baby with hair attached. And this idea of a crawling baby sort of emerged or evolved into this form known as a hai-hai, or crawling doll. Now, the white skin, the crawling form, I can see the similarities, but I'm a little bit suspect because hai-hai were not the earliest form to my eye. And so I'm much more of the first sort of school, if you will, that they emerged from saga. But hai-hai became an important form later on and continued to be a hai-hai form today in what's known as sosaku ningyo, or contemporary art dolls. The hai-hai is sort of one of those go-to forms depicting children, always an auspicious meaning and intent. Now, the name gosho, palace dolls, actually came to be used more in the modern era. We look at Nishizawa Senko, who was a banker, avid doll collector back in the Meiji era, and he and a group were doll aficionados, enthusiasts. They founded a research group and research club trying to look into the history of dolls, to document dolls, and to set up a standard nomenclature for what these dolls should be called. Historically, if you look at documents, sometimes they were called zudai ningyo, or big-headed dolls. Sometimes they were called omiyage ningyo, or gift dolls. We'll get into that in a minute as to why. Sometimes they were called shirajiku or shiraniku ningyo, having to do with the white skin, so white skin dolls. Sometimes they were called shirakiku ningyo, or white chrysanthemum dolls. Sometimes they were called ouchi ningyo, derived from their idea that they came from the imperial palace, the inner court, if you will. So gosho-ningyô, or zudai ningyo, big-headed dolls, or shirakiku ningyo, or white chrysanthemums, however you want to call it, these dolls became something of a form, a coveted form, if you will, when in the Edo period, in the 1700s, they became a go-to gift from the emperor to visiting daimyo, or military lords, and other members of the imperial family when certain events like coming of age ceremonies, or certain singular or signative events in their life, they would give, the emperor or the imperial level would give these gifts of these dolls, these gosho-ningyô, palace dolls, to commemorate and to convey auspicious wishes. And so that tradition given to the daimyo lords then spread out as they returned to their various home districts, if you will, spread the popularity of the form. And then after a while, you find other makers coming in, making dolls, making gosho-ningyô. Even though they're no longer connected with the palace, they still retained that connotation. Izukura Kihei was a very famous Osaka-based maker of gosho-ningyô. And sometimes they're called Izukura Ningyo, based on this maker. And this is a woodblock print, a surimono commemorative greeting print done in 1802. And what I like to look at when I see this is the scale. Not only is the hina in the background huge, the gosho that he's holding up is not lightweight either. But Generally, with these gift dolls, we think of this kind of form. They would have been simple, small, depicting chubby boys dressed minimally to expose that white skin that was so popular, holding an auspicious object to convey wishes of wealth, to convey wishes of longevity, marital success, military prowess. Dolls like this, dressed as a general, would have been very specific to convey military prowess and that type of thing. Now, this idea of a doll as a gift, a seated boy as a gift, can seem kind of strange. But we know that this is, documents indicate that this is what was done. But more relevant or more interesting for our conversation is when Commodore Perry arrived in Japan in 1853, 1854 to open the country, and there was ongoing negotiations. Izawa Minamasaka was one of the negotiators or one of the Japanese representatives, and he gave to Perry a seated gosho. So very much in keeping with this long tradition of a seated boy, and in this case, he was holding a gourd with a turtle design on it, with characters emblazed on it called kinosho, meaning or gold king. And this was a chess character, but it also had particularly appropriate connotations for the rank and the prestige of Perry. But I like to think about this. So imagine, Gorbachev and Reagan getting together for their big summit, or Nixon going to China. And in gratitude, or over the course of the negotiations, he whips out a Barbie or a GI Joe as a presentation gift. Just, clearly that wouldn't happen. But in the Japanese context, this idea of gosho-ningyô being a gift was basically hardwired into, and also very high associations in terms of class. They were seen as the loftiest doll form. And so as we look into them and we canvas our gosho-ningyô that we find, frequently they are not of the small scale, but quite elaborate, large constructs holding separately formed objects, which in and of themselves can be an interesting study. So here's a gosho-ningyô from the early 1800s holding on leash a dog, a cute little dog done out of papier-mâché with a gofun all over it with auspicious symbols. Frequently when we look at gosho-ningyô, we'll see this curious design detail on their forehead. And this is known as a mizuhiki. And so gosho-ningyô with this are called mizuhiki-de, meaning that they have this presentation ribbon, And so therefore, we know that this doll was very specifically designed as a gift. But dolls of exceeding high quality, gosho-ningyô of exceeding high quality were made, and frequently these were referred to as daimyo mono, or goods that would have been associated with the highest military class, the daimyo samurai families, again, indicating high level of quality. I just want to delve into this one a little bit more in detail. One of my favorites of a seated figure playing a biwa. But when you look at the fingers, just that they're really formed very specifically to that instrument. And so seeing the level of detail, the high quality of the textiles, the satin weave silk with the embroidery, all of that, the brocade cap, zucchini on his head, just absolutely extraordinary. But if we take off that cap, we also find that presentation ribbon again, the mizuhiki there up top. So gosho were one of the early forms that I focused on in my career beginning back in the 90s, and have been blessed or fortunate enough to have located and acquired a number of very fine daimyo mono pieces. This was one of my favorite. This was probably my first true high-end gosho that I was able to acquire. And just the textiles are just extraordinary. The scale, he's about 20 inches tall. Absolutely an amazing figure. Similarly, these three figures showed up at an auction in the United States in very sad condition, really sad condition. The textiles were wonderful, but the faces had losses and cracks and this type of other, and I was able to acquire them at auction. But with them came this photograph of 6 figures, indicating that originally it was part of a 6 set. And doing a little digging, it turned out that the previous owner had thrown away 3 of them because of condition. And I almost cried when I heard that they had thrown away, because once restored, absolutely stunning. Now, they stand about 28 inches high and absolutely amazing in terms of detail, depicting Chinese or foreign figures. And you can tell this by the ruffled collars and sleeves and that type of thing. And so I was very, very pleased to have had this set pass through my hands some years ago. Now, we all have those once in a lifetime figures that got away. And one of the ones that I lament not quite getting my hands upon was this wonderful gosho. You can see he's got the mizuhiki on his forehead, but he's pulling a treasure ship, the quintessential auspicious message, because the treasure ship brings in all goodness, monies and wealth and happiness and that type of thing. But what I want to point out here is the scale. And I want to say that this is a very large piece. And when I say a very large piece, I mean a large piece. Look at this in relation to the woman kneeling in front of the stand that the doll is displayed on. And I say it was a near miss. I had an opportunity to purchase this in Japan, but they decided that they did not want it to leave the country ultimately. So it had to stay behind. Alas, alas, alas. Now, there are different categories of gosho-ningyô. We have that auspicious gift element hardwired in, but they also have subdivisions. And one of the more common subdivisions is a thing called, or a set called mitate, or parody. And we'll encounter parody doll forms over and over and over again over the course of this video series. But I want to start with this mitate gosho. So here we have a woodblock print of the god of daily provision, Ebisu. So he's got a sea bream under his arm. So he's one of the kitchen gods, and he represents the idea of daily provision of food in the household. And we frequently find amazing gosho-ningyô with the sea bream as evidence or an indication of their identity. So here is the mitate, or parody gosho of Ebisu, with that giant red sea bream in front. And again, stupendous textiles, large scale seated figure. Another mitate or parody form, is one of the 24 paragons of filial piety, Moso. Moso, his story is that his mother was ill and she craved bamboo shoot soup, but it was in the middle of winter when bamboo shoots do not grow. But in desperation, he went into the bamboo forest looking for shoots and was just bereft or so sad that he couldn't provide this simple thing for his ailing mother. And from his tears, as they fell into the snow, bamboo shoots sprung up, and he was able to make the bamboo shoot soup that she so craved. And so Moso, as a parody on mitate, were very popular in woodblock print form. So here is a woman posing to be Moso. Moso was a boy or a young man. And so here's a parody print of Moso as a young woman. But Gosho, also doing a mitate of Moso, quite popular or wonderful when you find. And the hallmarks are a bamboo shoot in his outstretched hand, and then a hoe over his shoulder for digging. And then frequently the cap is laced with little snowballs, or white little tufts, to indicate that it was done in winter. So this one is one of my favorites. A long history with this piece. I won't go into it now. First encountered it in Paris many years ago. And now it's in a collection here in the United States. But an Edo, classic Edo or 19th century form. But as a form, it was also repeated later. We have Okamoto Gyokusui, a very important contemporary artist or modern artist beginning in the 1930s. And this is his take on Moso, kind of a jaunty, very excited, having his cache of the bamboo shoot. And you can just see him strolling with pride back through the forest to his mom so that he could make that soup that she so craved. Another popular form, if you will, or signature form or parody is that of Benkei. And we'll get into Benkei a little bit more. We've already touched on him briefly in a previous talk, but Benkei, the warrior monk, and his fight with Ushiwaka Maru on the Gojo Bridge, stuff of legend. But Benkei was also featured in a number of no performances, and from there, karakuri and kabuki performances. And here is a gosho-ningyô depicting Benkei in perhaps the most famous role in which he's presented, and that's the kanjincho, or subscription list. And so here's a photograph of a contemporary actor playing the role of Benkei in the play, The Subscription List, and then also next to him a contemporary form of that figure of Benkei. But the gosho-ningyô, imitative of Benkei in The Subscription List, is just, it's a powerful image. So in addition to No and other tales and legends that were ripe for mitate or parody in gosho form, we're also Another form is Chosenjin, or Koreans, or basically just foreigners. Japan, as we know, was a relatively isolated country for many centuries, locked down in the late 1600s and didn't open again until Perry in 1853. And so the arrival of foreigners or foreign embassies were very rare, but also very special occasions. The Dutch embassy came periodically throughout the Edo period, but also the Koreans sent embassies to Japan, diplomatic overtures, and they would parade from one end of the country to the other to meet the shogun in Edo, more to the north and east away from Korea. And so their processions through towns were commemorated. Local festivals reenacted, and this is an early or mid 18th century painting of the Korean embassy, if you will, entourage arriving in Edo to pay tribute or to send or work diplomatic exchanges with the shogun in the capital Edo, now Tokyo. And so we find gosho-ningyô depicting these things by looking at their hats and by the horn here, this very distinctive Korean horn, just symbols and details that indicate that this is a chosenjin. And again, I love the detail on this, how the hand delicately cusps or grasps the horn and his fingers just, I don't know, sending out that note. I find this one particularly lovely. Now, a form that is rife for representation in Gosho is, of course, sumo wrestlers with their corpulent bodies. And so a corpulent child imitating sumo is just sort of like perfect for the Gosho form. And this is a crowd favorite, if you will. I wish I had more of these. This is just an amazing form of a Gosho couched in that position of sumo wrestling. Now, we've talked about mitate. Now we're going to deal with another form, and this is karakuri, or mechanical. Now, sometimes you find seated forms, Gosho forms, with masks in their hands. And this is a simple mechanical doll with a knob in the back. And when the knob is turned, the mask slowly raises and comes up to the face, transforming the character into, or the doll into the character depicted. So this is Okame, the Mask of Okame. And this is a relatively contemporary doll done by Tamaya Shobe VIII. The current Tamaya Shobe is the ninth. This was done by his elder brother who died, who passed on, unfortunately, at an early age. But this is one in my collection I have by Tamaya Shobe VIII, Karakuri gosho-ningyô with the Mask of Okame. Now, one that you find with some frequency is a karakuri gosho with a fox or kitsune mask. And so, of course, you turn the handle, the arm comes up, and the gosho is transformed into kitsune, or fox. Now, the fox, we could do an entire presentation just on the fox. The fox is a symbol of Inari, the rice goddess. The messenger between Earth and the rice goddess is the fox. And so frequently foxes feature into stories and legends, both as a mischief maker or shapeshifter, but also as this messenger or representation of Inari. And one of the most famous no dramas and historical dramas about the fox and Inari in the guise of the fox is Kokaji, the famous sword maker who needs to make a special sword and prays to Inari for assistance. And she comes down in the form of a fox, and the fox aids Kokaji in the making of a blade. Now, this was a very famous no drama. It was done in the Takeda Mechanical Doll Theater in Osaka. And so this is a woodblock print depicting that, how that would have been depicted in the Takeda Theater with Kokaji pounding on the blade while a fox assistant is there helping in a syncopated form to forge the blade. So popular no drama, popular tale of mechanical doll, and then also in karakuri gosho. Other no form sort of mitate thing elements in gosho are the tsurukame, the crane and the tortoise, a very popular and very auspicious no drama that frequently gets depicted in gosho form. Not so much as a mask transforming karakuri, but just basically having the caps on their head depicting the tortoise and the crane, and then the ongoing, or the emperor that watches the dance of the tortoise and the crane. Tsurukame. So structurally, let's look at a little different style. Most of these dolls that we've seen have been either fixed standing or fixed seated, but we also have a different tradition called mitsuore, or triple jointed. And so sometimes you see these gosho-ningyô swathed in just beautiful, rich textiles. But in point of fact, underneath, they have an articulated structure. And this allows them to be depicted standing or seated or kneeling. And they have a very gosho-ningyô done in a mitsuore technique, have a very specific joint structure with very flat joints that allows them to stand very solidly. This was a figure I had that was quite large, upwards of 30 inches. That was once in the Cleveland Art Museum, part of their doll collection that was auctioned off by Theriaults a number of years ago that I was fortunate enough to get. It came unclothed, naked, and I had to get that kimono made special in Kyoto. But the joinery is very quintessential gosho joinery. You can see how the knees fit together completely flush, and that allows for great stability when standing independently. But if we look at the back, we can see that the back of the thighs are carved out so that when it's in that kneeling position, the calves of the lower legs tuck completely into that hollow cavity, making for a very secure kneeling position as well. When you don't have that cavity, the dolls tend to be a little bit wobbly. And so that is also another hallmark of a true gosho style joinery, mitsuore triple jointed joinery. And so triple jointed, just for clarity, is the hip joint, the knee joint, and the ankle joint. That are the three joints for the triple jointed or mitsuore. Wrist joints and those kinds of things aren't really connected with that. We find that in other types of dolls, but the triple joinery allows for articulation of the form and also indicates that the doll's clothes were made to be taken on and taken off. Now, two of the more classic ways in which mitsuore gosho were presented were in pairs, unusually. And this is an older brother and a younger brother form called kyodai. Kyodai of older brother, younger brother, or siblings was very auspicious, and frequently we find mitsuore, very high quality daimyomono gosho of mitsuore depicting kyodai, the older brother and the younger brother. Now, alternatively, we also find a pairing of the prince and princess, the himegime or wakagime himegime. So the prince and princess pairing of gosho was another way that mitsuore gosho were put into a very strong effect, and they're of good scale and almost invariably of exceptional quality in terms of the make, but also the textile. And this is one of my favorite wakagime himegime, prince and princess gosho pair articulated. This is one of my all-time favorite pairs. Gosho were considered pretty much the hallmark or the benchmark by which collections were measured traditionally in Japan. So coveted were they. And so this is a photograph from the 1920s of Takashi Endo's Unaiso, or Children's Pavilion in Tokyo. He was known for having an exceptional collection. And so this was done, this photograph was taken during the Hina Matsuri. So aside from the Hinadan, or the Girls' Day dolls, you can also see a number two very tall standing gosho down there at the bottom. And if we look to the left, just around the corner, we can see indications of an even larger standing gosho pair next to a very large inubako or inu hariko dog box. But the gosho-ningyô were pretty much the barometers of the quality of a collection in general. And so the highest quality gosho were reflected in the highest quality collections, and I guess vice versa. And speaking of collectors, I had mentioned earlier that Nishizawa Senko was part of the group that helped devise the nomenclature for dolls that they actually call gosho-ningyô. Gosho-ningyô largely through the efforts of Nishizawa Senko and his entourage of toy collectors and enthusiasts and study groups back in the teens. He passed on, and his son, Nishizawa Tekiho, took over. Unfortunately, the basic family collection, the base family collection, was largely destroyed during the Kanto earthquake in 1924. And so Nishizawa Tekiho, that came from banking money, had to build the collection anew. But Tekiho became the curator of dolls at the Imperial Museum. And not only did he have an amazing collection in his own right, but he also helped curate the Imperial collection, which is now the Tokyo National Museum. And he also helped foreign collectors periodically in their collecting habits. But Nishizawa Tekiho, a seminal figure in that. And so this is a set that was of gosho-ningyô depicting an yet unidentified no drama that was in the Tekiho collection. I had the privilege of acquiring and selling a number of years back. Now, exciting news, very recently, kind of hot off the press, is that the Iwatsuki Ningyo Museum has finally opened. It opened in February. Of course, with the coronavirus, it got shut down almost immediately. but I'm very much looking forward to going when the country reopens. And the current exhibit, or the exhibit that will begin in June, is what? Of Gosho. And so this will have Nishizawa Tekiho's collection. A number of very important collections have been subsumed. And so now the Iwatsuki Doll Museum, or Ningyo Museum, is the largest Japanese doll museum in the world. And I'm very excited to get over there and see that as soon as I'm able. Connected with Nishizawa Tekiho is an early mentor for me, Asahara san in Tokyo. She helped me, in so many ways over many, many years, help me educate myself on Ningyo, or help educate me on Ningyo. And she was a friend of Tekiho, and herself a passionate gosho-ningyô collector. And so the Asahara-san collection, now in the Sugamo Museum, contains many iconic gosho-ningyô. And I was very indebted to her for sharing her wealth of knowledge and also letting me inspect her collection over the many, many, many years that we were connected with each other. Now, foreign collections also contain gosho-ningyô, and I'm always excited when I find, offs or stray dolls. So this is a photograph from the 1800s of a doll collection in Rouen in France, Jules Adlin's collection. And so he had a number of dolls. But if you look there on the lower right, you will see a standing gosho-ningyô, and that was his favorite doll, Mikika. Now, Mikika is a standing gosho, a daimyo mono, high quality, probably a mitate of Benkei, given that Buddhist wheel pattern, but he's missing some of his attributes, so we don't know. Possibly Benkei, but Mikika was Jules Adlin's favorite. Jules Adlin was an artist, an engraver, and he did this engraving of Mikika based largely on that photograph you can see. But he also wrote a poem, an homage to Mikika, that was printed and distributed privately among friends. And I love the first stanza of the poem, Mikika, which this is my translation from the French. Perched in the sill of an upper story window, I dream of the gentle land where I was made. All around me, everyone speaks a strange language and mispronounce my name, Mikika. Now, Mikika is nonsense. It actually doesn't mean anything. It was Jules Adlin's nickname for Mikika. Mikika, unfortunately, is missing. Traces or vestiges of the Adlin collection still are there in Rouen at the Bibliothèque. But his prized Mikika is gone. So many people would love to find Mikika again. So collecting Japanese gosho-ningyô, important aspect in developing an all-rounded ningyo collection. And they're great just as displaying objects. And I've always been, just so drawn to them. But in the modern era, gosho-ningyô continue to be made and to have resonance. Maruhei Okiheizo, the imperial supplier of Ningyo to the imperial family, based in Kyoto, was quite known beginning historically, but also in the 20s and 30s, started making gosho-ningyô of very high quality in poses and using high textiles. And this is a harukoma gosho, or gosho riding a hobby horse. Contemporary artists not affiliated with a salon or a studio or an atelier, if you will. Noguchi Meiho, a very famous modern maker, beginning in the 20s and 30s and continuing 30s and on, creating iconic gosho-ningyô, taking the classic seated form but bringing a more modern sensitivity. And so Noguchi Meiho's forms are very readily identified. Okamoto Gyokusui, who we met before with his little interpretation of the Moso, the bamboo shoot guy, also had a strong career. Not only did he make some Ichimatsu Ningyo, but he became most famous for his gosho Ningyo. And so he did a whole series of gosho of ladies applying makeup. So on the left, gosho applying eye pencil, and the other applying rouge to the lips. So this was a whole series of very small, very affordable gosho-ningyô, but done in what's known as a sosaku, or contemporary art style. But we can see very clearly that it's a sosaku ningyo. Now, Hirata Goyo, I'm rounding it up here. Hirata Goyo Nidai, I will be speaking many, many times about this seminal, all-important artist who became Japan's first doll artist to be designated as a living national treasure. One of his most famous series had to deal with young children, young boys frequently, holding an object or looking at an object, which is clearly, to my eye, an homage to the gosho form, but completely moved into a modern context using a realistic or a stylized realism that was the hallmark of the Goyo lineage in and of itself. I frequently use this image of Momotaro, the peach boy, emerging from the peach, done in Goyo's shasei or realistic style. And clearly, when we think of gosho-ningyô, we can see the gosho influence. I'm not saying that this is a gosho-ningyô, but you can see the influence. These cherubic, naked young boys conveying auspicious wishes is the essence of a gosho-ningyô, but here highly pigmented to show a little bit more sense of naturalism and realism, because clearly, even if we go back to, say, Shonagon's quote about the plump white child, clearly the child wasn't completely white. That would be kind of scary, but that color was what was so popular. So Hirata Goyo has taken this to a sort of a modernist edge. Now, this continues today. Yabuchi Satoshi, his figures. I don't think he considers himself so much a ningyo maker as an art maker or art carver. Very famous, Yabuchi Satoshi. And this is his rendition of Momotaro, the Peach Boy. And you can clearly see the Goyo overtone in there, but done in a decidedly modernist twist, holding the split open peach. He sort of caught the decisive blow of the blade in his hand, and the peach splits open, and there he is. But again, Gosho written all over it. Now, to close up, the current highest practitioner of gosho-ningyô in Japan is Shimada Koen-san. And I admire this gentleman so much. Every time I take a tour to Japan, or every time I visit Japan, I go by and visit Shimada Koen's shop. And he's so articulate and so passionate about his creation and the ethos that goes behind it. And when he describes things, I get just goosebumps listening to him describe. And again, I took my group there in 2017, and one of the collectors espied this little boy in blue. And Shimada-san was kind enough to explain the entire inspiration behind the creation of this piece and how it reflects the blue water of the Kamo River that he goes and meditates by every morning as he does his morning walk. And the blue is from the ripples of that. And that was the inspiration for this particular piece. And I actually have, I would love to own many Shimada Koen pieces, but I fell in love with this one because it's a blending that is almost never seen. In fact, this is kind of singular, of Gosho with a Buddhist form. And so this is depicting the Buddha in Raigo, or welcoming the worshiper to paradise. And so here you have a painting of Amida in Raigo, that form, the sculpture. But then when you look at Shimada Koen's piece, it's the same, but done in that white skin shiraniku gosho form. And this again, speaking to the artistic nature and mandate, self-assigned mandate that Shimada Koen says. We visited him, my last group that was there in the fall of 2019, just last fall. He unveiled this piece of a boy and depicting the moon. And literally, as he described this process, this doll, tears came to the eyes of many who were listening to him speak and describe the process and the meanings behind this and what it meant to him. And I would love to own this piece. This is way up on my wish list. Well, there you have it. Old school Gosho. From the beginnings up to today. I've written extensively on gosho-ningyô in both of my books. And again, you can find these either on my website or through Amazon. And again, my name is Alan Scott Pate. And this is Notes on Ningyo. This has been week number 8. And I want you to stay tuned for next week, when we'll deal with a different theory, a different form. Again, classic Issho Ningyo. And the theme will be courtesans, actors, and villains. 18th century Japanese fashion dolls. Now, not fashion in the French bébé sense, but fashion dolls in the Japanese sense of the term. Now, in the meantime, again, my name is Alan Scott Pate. Please reach out to me on Facebook and email me, share images of the Gosho you have, and just any doll you have. I'm always interested in seeing, answer any questions that you have, and have been really enjoying the brisk correspondence with people sending in their images to me to evaluate and to just to share for the pure joy of it all. So again, next week, please tune in for another edition of Notes on Ningyo, week 9, when it will be courtesans, actors, and villains, 18th century Japanese fashion dolls. Until then, trust all the best for all of you. Take care. Bye.